Jeff Johns' run of the Booster Gold title, specifically after 52, was phenomenal. There's a lot of really good stories in there. Make sure to check out the one where he, goes back in time and tries to save Barbara from the Joker. That's really good storytelling. But for me personally, one of the best, if not the best, Booster Gold stories, not including 52, we'll get to that later, is Booster Gold Blue and Gold, in where it really explores a what-if scenario that includes the two greatest pals in the DC universe, Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. Now, for those of you that aren't very familiar with this epic bromance, these two are kind of the goofballs of the DC universe, and you kind of get a lot of sense in what real friendship means, the hilarity, two guys just trying to save the world, but being able to have a laugh about it. And more importantly, if you haven't read Booster Gold and Blue Beetle stories, please go back, check out 52, check out Justice League International. Those stories are kind of a good place to start, and you really get a sense of the love that these two share. But Booster Gold Blue and Gold is not only a time-traveling story, but it's a high-stakes time-traveling story, and it explores really strong themes of friendship, of loss, and of having the situation of, if I could go back and change the world to spend a couple of more days with my best friend, would I do it? And that in itself is just very hard storytelling, because you really get a sense of that emotional vibe from these two, in where you see the loss. Everybody's, maybe lost a family member, or maybe some people have lost a best friend, and what that means. And in this scope, it's a comic story, so it's much greater. So please, if anything else, this is one of those stories that really tugs at those heartstrings, but it also reminds you of the fun that comics are supposed to be. Glorious, glorious read. We've talked about a couple of different Superman stories already in this essential lists. However, I feel that one of those that is kind of overlooked, but is really the modern retelling of a great Superman story, is Jeff Johns' Superman Secret Origin. First of all, not only is this a beautiful story in where you really get to see the isolation, loneliness, and how Clark Kent grows up to be Superman, but on top of that, Gary Frank and John Sibyl, again here, creating some of the most glorious art I have ever seen in a comic book that really brings out Richard Donner's Superman really to life. That's what this looks like to me. And so it feels like I'm watching a movie right before my very eyes, which really brings you into the experience, which I really appreciate. But most importantly, whenever you're thinking about a good Superman story, you have Superman, he fights something that's pretty strong, and he learns something or he saves the day. But what makes a great Superman story is not knowing that Clark Kent is from Krypton, but that Clark Kent is actually from Kansas. And I think that's a very good talking point in specifically this volume of stories. In Superman's Secret Origin, it is an origin story, so you get to, again, see Clark Kent as he grows up, specifically with the Kents, and it's a very heartwarming, heartbreaking story of isolation and alienation, and how he's grown up to be this individual and finally goes off into Metropolis to be this new person, and you kind of get all of the fun of some of the original stories. You get a taste of him meeting the Legion of Superheroes, him taking on Parasite and Metallo, and his first coming together with Lex Luthor, his secret crushes with Lana Lang, meeting Lois Lane, and what all of that means. It encompasses all of the earlier elements of what makes a great Superman story in, the Golden Age, but it gives it more of a modern twist, and it really brings out that idea of people not really looking to the sky anymore and don't have something to look for, people being trapped in their own lives. And in this case, Superman comes straight out of the action and really brings forth a new way of looking into the sky and having a new sense of hope. This embodies everything that's good about a Superman story, because not only does it give you a couple of laughs and it makes you go, oh, this is a superhero, but more importantly, it really draws you into the origins of the character and gets you invested in their story. This isn't about the ultimate last son of Krypton, the Man of Steel, the really powerful Superman. No, this is about a farm boy from Kansas who believes in responsibility and takes the world by storm. There are so many iconic moments in this story, I can't really go into a lot of detail, but I promise you, this is a story where if you want to know again what a good Superman story is, what good Superman writing is, this is the story for you. You will not be disappointed. Batman has a lot of phenomenal stories, but one that's not just phenomenal, but is a lot of fun to read, has a good assortment of Batman villains and heroes, and is also basically a detective story, which is what Batman's supposed to be all about, is Batman Hush. And Jeff Loeb, with the awesome illustrations of Jim Lee, creates a story that is worth reading again and again and again. Here we have Batman in a sense of, kind of, you get a story where you're really building a sense of who Batman is. Not just Batman the character, but also Bruce Wayne's past kind of coming to haunt him in a new different way. With the wide variety of different characters like Killer Croc, Harley Quinn, the Riddler, you have the new character of Hush, who is this mysterious Hush person, Joker, Superman shows up, Poison Ivy. It feels like a very grand blockbuster of a story, and more importantly, this could ultimately be a really good Batman film if they ever went this far. Here, what really drives this Batman story and takes it away from others and puts it in a league of its own is that a person that's never really gotten into Batman can read this and not be afraid of not going into it, not knowing anything. So the casual reader can go in and really get an experience that is worthwhile, which is what comics are supposed to do. But on top of that, for those people that are really into Batman and haven't read the story, what's wrong with you? You should have already read the story by now. You get a taste of all the little Easter eggs that make a Batman story so much fun. This is something for the ages, and to anybody who wants to get into Batman, who hasn't read a Batman story or doesn't really understand the character, this is one of the top recommendations I have, because it'll keep you into the actual story with the action and the storytelling itself, but more importantly, it allows you to build a grand culture of what Batman really is, while at the same time being able to share that experience even if you're a casual or not. Want to get into the New 52 and really don't want to read another Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman story? Well, then I got the story for you. Here we have Earth 2. And Earth 2 shows how the multiverse of the DC Universe can be used perfectly. In this story, you kind of get a taste of an alternate dimension, again, Earth 2, where the world's heroes, which aren't called superheroes, they're called wonders, basically go off and, fight the good fight. In this kind of a world, the three top people, Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, they're all gone. They've all been destroyed because Darkseid tried to take over the world. And so now in their absence, new heroes rise up, and we have different takes on some of the classic heroes like The Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Atom Smasher. So you really kind of get a taste of what makes a great superhero story, but with a new modern sensibility. This is the New 52, of course, so it's kind of a new retelling of old stories. And that's what this is. This is kind of the Justice League in their heyday. And so what we're doing here is now we're bringing out the Justice Society of America, which is what they used to be called, and now giving them a new modern twist. And they do it in a great way because you become invested in these characters and you have a new way of learning these stories. Not only is it action-packed, but it's also very not emotional, but you really get a sense of what it means to be a hero in these stories and when a responsibility is thrust upon you. So please, check this out. It's a great read. New X-Men, House of M, Astonishing X-Men, Decimation, Endangered Species, Messiah Complex, X-Men Utopia, Nation X. These are just some of the greatest X-Men stories I've ever read. But all of them pale in comparison to the amazing storytelling and blockbuster, unrelenting thrill of a ride that is X-Men Second Coming. Arguably, this is in my top 2 greatest stories ever for me. Not only am I a big X-Men fan, but this is so much more than just an X-Men story. Here, it has everything. As much as I love Cyclops, Cyclops really shines as leader of the X-Men in so many different ways. It utilizes all the characters in complex emotional capacities to really showcase a story in where it's all or nothing. By this point, the mutants are almost extinct, and basically this is their final hurrah. This is their last stand. And everything from everyone to any given situation is trying to snuff them out. Not only is the illustrations in this story fantastic and keeps you on the edge of your seat, but the action as it climaxes from Act 1, 2, and 3 is just unrelentingly good. You have almost every kind of emotion you can feel when you read this story. Terror, excitement, anger, sadness, love. There are so many elements to the story that make it so great that it's so much more than just a comic book story, so much more than just a comic event. X-Men Second Coming is a rebirth for the most part of what a great X-Men story is supposed to be. It is all or nothing, like I said. It just feels so big. You become so invested in all the characters reading, and it just goes from one event to the next event to the next event, and you just keep thinking to yourself, oh my god, how much more can they take? How much more can they suffer? Because that's what an X-Men story is. It's all about overcoming adversity. And literally, in this case, all of the worst case apocalyptic scenarios happen. And Cyclops, along with his mutant brothers and sisters, need to do everything in their power to come out on top. Will they? You have to read the story. This is something that my words fail to describe because everything about it is wonderful. If you love X-Men and you haven't read X-Men Second Coming, you need to check it out. You cannot check this out without already being informed about all of the events that are already set up in this space. And like I said, read the stories that I already talked about at the beginning of this specific section, because those will really give you a lot of clarity as to what makes it so wonderful. You lose heroes, you have new heroes, old enemies pop up, old friends pop up. Everything about it just makes it feel so real and so strong, and it brings in such a new element to what the X-Men universe is all about. When people say the X-Men aren't good or the X-Men could be better, false. This is the best. This is where everything stands. This is their last stand. If anything, this deserves to be the final movie, because the way that it builds from step to step to event, that's where it goes. I know I've been talking about this for a long time, but it doesn't get any better than this. If you want something that's action-packed, emotional, and something that'll make you go, wow, and you feel really, really, really good about the ending, then this is the story for you. X-Men Second Coming. It doesn't get any better than this.